Hey, welcome back to our Fire Engineering Humpday Hangout, to our show, Issues and Challenges in Today's Fire Service. We've got another great show lined up for you today. I'm Chief Rick Lasky, along with the rest of our Humpday team. Chief John, the big dog, Salka, is with us. Chief Scott Thompson from the Colony, Texas, our regulars. And who's not going to be joining us today? Chief Terry McGrath, if you remember, Terry retired from Louisville recently and took a job at the state of Texas overseeing their, golly, Scott, they combined everybody. I think they TDM, TIFMAS, everything. I talked to him the other day. He was deploying units for the flooding down in Houston. He had stuff deployed for the tornadoes. He had strike teams, and he's like, "Oh, I've got 10 strike teams back in your old neighborhood ready to go with the wildland stuff." But Terry's busy, so I don't know how much he's going to be joining us with his new job. But we wish Terry the best if he can't make it back with us. But we absolutely love Terry. He's been a great partner for me. Scott, you and I were together at Louisville for 10 years, and you and Terry, and then when Tim was with us, defined loyalty, and I can't thank you enough, buddy. And Terry's awesome. So to our viewers, as a reminder, unless you're watching this recorded later, which a lot of you do, if you have any questions, zip over to one of the social media sites, or if you go to X, formerly known as Twitter, just make sure you add hashtag FE Talk for Fire Engineering Talk. Now, today's topic, in fact, before we get to today's topic, Scott, we got to do an update on the boys, the Arlington, Texas connection now. So,
Yep.
What companies they're signed to, and how is the brotherly love going on in Arlington, Texas?
Well, Braden is still in the academy, so he's got 8 weeks. But Garrett's at their busy house, Station 6, so that's also the hazmat team. But he's teaching some hose with Braden down there going through class. But it's just cool having them together. And I think the history is going to be they're going to be the first two brothers to officially work for the Arlington Fire Department. So it's just cool. Seeing them together is cool.
Well, and they're working for a great boss. We've had him on our show before. What a great chief. Arlington's like what? How many? 25? How many stations, Scott?
No, they're I think they're up to 18. They just opened 18
stations,
and they're more. But yeah, they got an outstanding chief. Brett Stidham, man, is top notch, and I'm so glad both of the boys are going to get to experience his leadership.
Oh, that guy's phenomenal. And I think it's like, John, it's like the two boys it's going to be like an episode of Blue Bloods with Danny and Jamie, with the two Thompson boys working at Arlington. But it is, it's kind of what, because I know everybody has to go through the academy and pay their dues and everything, but how long was he in Dallas?
7 years.
7 years with the big D. So he's not a rookie, but you know what? He knows the routine, and he's doing great. So I'm excited for you, buddy. And John,
thank you.
So John, we keep wearing you out about, first of all, we do the five, if you will. Paul John always says, he always talks about his span of control at the firehouse was 5. That's how he likes 5 kids. But so with his 111 grandkids, and but his daughter-in-law, one of his daughter-in-laws, but Rachel, she's competing with you for like an Emmy or something. You were on Chicago Fire.
She won. She won. She was doing 120 miles an hour the other day on camera, and then she had the gun out. She had it was great. Yeah.
So, and she's with who? What is it? The name of the department?
Berkeley County Sheriff, South Carolina.
So she's on live PD. So look for Rachel. And Dynamite comes little packages because she lifted that cruise overhead. She's a professional trainer, so I would not want to mess with her. But anyway, hey. So today's topic is put together the best training program, and joining us. And yes, he's one of my teammates here. So for our viewers, get over it. That's Chief Thompson ended up with. He's already laughing. Scott ended up at FDIC with us and writing and everything because. We sucked him in. We threw the hook out there and we drug him kicking and screaming. And now John Scott's the author of the best-selling book, The Functional Fire Company. So we hooked Scott, we hooked Terry. We've been doing that for years, and now we're hooking Paulie. We're hooking Paul Capo. Paul's one of my assistant chiefs right here at Estes Valley Fire in Estes Park, Colorado. And Paul, thanks for joining us, buddy. Thanks for coming on board.
Thank you. I am honored to be with you all and share the passion that you all have, and I appreciate you.
Well, we always do this. We need a bio from our special guest. So start us, I don't want to give too much away, but start us with your New York to Florida to Colorado trip and how that all worked out. And your FDIC, for our viewers, Paul's longtime instructor at FDIC with our good friend for many years, Jimmy Crawford. And we need to throw a prayer out there to Jimmy, John, right now. If you're following us on social media, Jimmy's daughter is missing, and the sheriff, they're just please, a lot of prayer goes a long way, and please keep Jim and his family in your thoughts and prayers. But Paul taught for Jimmy for a long time. He wrote a lot of articles for fire engineering. So Paul, your bio, buddy.
Well, if we go back to New York, then we're starting really young. So I'll try to expedite it all. But yeah, I was born in New York, and when I was young, my parents moved down to Florida, and it took me till 11th grade where I asked my parents, "Hey, how come the town we're in, everyone's from New York?" So there's a story about some construction guys that built houses, advertised it in Long Island, where I'm from, and everyone said, "Yeah, I could buy this house for this amount of money," and we lived in smaller house in Long Island, and I grew up bought a bunch of New Yorkers with bagel stores and delis and bodegas there. So I kind of kept my accent a little longer than I should, because I came down from to Florida fairly young. 11 years old, my neighbor moved in, Christy, and she's now my wife. So we've been best friends since 11th grade. 11 years old, 7th grade. And we have 2 children, Michael and Bella. So I did 30 something years living in Florida, 21 years on the job in Florida, and then 7 years ago moved out to retired there and moved out to Estes Park. So I'm in my 7th year here. So yeah, I very fortunate. I felt like I took advantage of every opportunity that came my way in the fire service, and yeah, it's never been a work a day in my life.
Well, I mean, I go back for a second. So, and John, with Brian being a firefighter, one of the 5 of yours, and Scott with your 2. So Michael, Paul's son, is on our department as well. He's a fine young man, and Christy, his wife, is big time making a difference with with peer support and all kind of, and Paul does the same thing. So they do a lot of great stuff for a lot of people, especially those that might be going through a rough time. That's awesome. But you left something out. So was it your grandpa who built? So I'm going to tell this story, John and Scott. So you can imagine the mafia. I'm sorry. You can imagine the Capo family. All right. So what was your grandpa built spec houses up on Long Island and said, "Come move to Florida," or something like that? Or
it wasn't my grandfather, but yeah, we jumped on that boat. Like I said, yeah.
It was let's build some houses, and here you can move to Florida and buy one. So yeah, there's a reason why there's beef sandwiches and Italian sausage and all that down there in Florida because of that family. But so Paul talked about like your FDIC experiences and the class you taught there, and then kind of walk us down into your program, and then we'll get to what's going on here.
Sure. Like I said, ever since I was young, when I joined the fire service, hit the ground running, like all of you and our viewers as well. So in 2005, started a training company. I couldn't stop talking about it, and next thing you know, I'm getting asked to speak at other departments, and I felt like I need some liability. So we started a company, and it's still in service today. So teaching everything that I learned myself, and that led into Jim Crawford, Chief Crawford. He came down to Clearwater where I was working, and I didn't know I was in an interview, but he about 3 days was talking to me about case studies and my passion, and then he asked me as a young kid to teach at FDIC. So for a long run there, I was teaching at FDIC, doing his RIT combat drills, and then I wound up speaking at FDIC, and so that's kind of it in short in regards to fire engineering. I was fortunate enough to do 6 at a time. I think maybe 24 training minutes throughout the years with our buddy Rob Maloney and Diane, of course, and so they would feature us on training minutes. So fire engineering has been very good to me.
Well, and John, you've done it. I mean, we've talked about, you and I started teaching FDIC in the early 90s, but when Penwell, now Clarion, our parent company, took it over in 96, how many people, you think about how many people you recruited, John, for your side? I know, Scott, that's how you ended up with us. So many people, John, that you recruited for your Get Out Alive program that we taught together, Save Your Own Get Out Alive, that are now out there on their own doing some pretty, either they're retired because, it's been years and years we've been teaching it, but so many great people with talent like Paul that you brought into your program that are now out there on their own doing stuff.
Yeah. And every time I walk up the stairs up to my office, that's where I got all my old pictures, my old FDIC pictures, and, Get Out Alive and all that other stuff that we did. And every time I look at them, I see all these guys, most of which, like you just said, are retired. A couple are gone. I got what's his name right here, Billy Craddock on my bulletin board. Remember, we had him from a couple of years from down there in Georgia. And what's great about it is it rolls on and on and on. Now some of those guys are their own lead instructors at FDIC, hands-on, and they got a group of underlings, a group of guys that they're pulling in. And 10 years from now, those guys will be doing it, and then we're all just a link in the chain here, which is great.
Well, and like I say, everywhere I run into, it's people are like, "Hey, I used to teach for Chief Salka back then, the king, as they called you, the king." And then Scott, you've been recruiting people. I mean, you've been teaching FDIC for years and years and years now. It's kind of like, I was joking about the mafia, but how we recruit people, not only just to read the best-selling book, The Functional Fire Company, but you've done the same thing. There's so many people, we know Eddie Buchanan, but so many people that you have drug over to Indy for us that are now teaching programs and classes.
Yeah, it's great. It is. It's a big family, and you brought me to FDIC in 2002, and been going back ever since. And it's been a tremendous, love it, great experience. And yeah, try to get as many people as we can. About one of my single role paramedics delivered a program this year at FDIC, not even a firefighter, and had a great room full of people, a lot of good feedback, and so yeah, it's great.
Oh, and it's just, and again, when we always talk family on this show, we always start off talking about family. Because it's our show, we can do what we want. But it truly is the FDIC family, the tentacles, as John would say, reach out to so many people over the years. And, John, when you talked about Billy Craddock, I'm thinking of Meckelbeck, when we did the tribute picture to Billy McGinn, after 9/11, and then you look and you see, two of our guys that were, we lost in a training burn after that. And, over the years, you can't help but go, man, we've lost so many good friends, so many people due to natural causes or line of duty death. And, no disrespect, but a lot of people in private industry don't always look that way at it. It's like, oh, it's a shame, and they move on. But with us, family's family. And, John, you've, besides having sons doing all kinds of different careers, from working for, working up in upstate New York, like Johnny's doing, or Brian's in North or South Carolina as a firefighter, and James is in the Marines, and Maureen's doing stuff, and Scott, your kids, and you've got Michael, one of your two, working here, Paul. But so the county, and real quick before we move on to Paul here, Scott, how far are you guys? You're putting together, or you already got it? Remind me, the training facility there that you had spec'd out is pretty freaking awesome. Is it done, or so?
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that for a little bit. Your training facility.
Yeah, we was in the planning stage. We have a little piece of land we call the yard. I mean, it's very, very small.
Paul knows about those pieces of land.
Yeah. And so Garrett Rice, who's our A-Ship battalion, but also our training guy, got to work on it. We wanted to be able to do some live fire training, and so we did, and went with Forge Fire. But it's up, and what we've been doing now, we've sent 3 groups to FDTN to learn how to really burn. To go down there with Jim McCormick, and everything from how to start the fires and run those. So we're getting a cadre of people trained up. We haven't done a department-wide live fire deal yet, but it's 3 stories. We tried to make it similar to the kind of fires we go to. And so, yeah, it's really cool. We got some more money to do phase 2 of it. So yeah, it's just, it's exciting, and it's going to give our guys a whole nother opportunity to do some cool training things.
Oh, absolutely. And a long time coming. You've done so many great things in the colony, and it shows with the type of people you have working there. And John, your guys are always training. So Paul, let's walk down the path here in Estes Valley Estes Valley Fire Protection District. So first of all, I guess first thing is talk about the training facility you have here. And we'll talk about that, what all you can do. Because I know when I came here for my interview, and I told you, and John knows this, and Scott knows this, when we were doing the tours, it was one of my favorite parts of the tours because I love training. And remember, John, I told you, I'm like, oh my God, you should see all the props. Could I have fun there? This place is set up. It's so awesome. And it's set up because of you and your desire and your team. You got, Captain Chris Thomas is your partner here doing great things, but there's a Jimmy McCormick FDIC Clearwater real life kind of atmosphere there. So let's talk about the training facility first, and let's talk about the programs, and then John and Scott will jump in there too. But talk about that facility.
Sure. And I'll be careful not to go down a rabbit hole because I get into details of training. But in regards to the training grounds, right? Like anything else we do, like what's the objective? And the objective is realistic, practical training. So we have a small footprint as well, Scott. But when I was coming here, I inherited a 3-story tower that was getting built when I got here. So it consists of 7 Connex boxes, 3-story building, standpipes, the whole deal. Wound up getting more Connex boxes in other locations, but sticking with that, I can't tell you how many places that we've all probably been that had beautiful training grounds, brick facades, concrete, etc. And when they go in there and search or stretch lines, it's a square box inside these rooms, and that's not realistic, right? Who's going into forcing the door and going into an abandoned structure? Not saying we don't find abandoned buildings, but what we did was we framed out and we made 2 of the 3 stories, 3-bedroom, 2-story apartment. When you force the front door, we forcible entry prop. There's carpet, so we teach a lot of stimulus response things, and go in and you pull some ceiling, so there's props there, so the irons firefighter can search behind the door, and you're on carpet and furniture. And when you transition to the hallway, you change floor coverings, so there's different floor coverings, and all the bedroom doors that we framed up swing away from you into the bedrooms, which has carpet and cribs and bunk beds, because all of that leads to realistic training of how we search that bunk bed all of a sudden. And there's plenty of ways we alter some things, and the kitchen and dining room, they have tables and chairs and etc. And there are plenty of training grounds that have this, but walls are false sometimes, where you pull out a 4x4 sheet of plywood on either side and you drop in drywall, and we do that as we start getting into some advanced or experienced firefighters that are more than just stretching, where you stretch short and you have to breach a wall to maybe knock down the room until you can hump more hose, to make the bedroom. Or so there's wall breaching, and they're 16-inch on centers, and they're obstructed or non-obstructed, and we have conduit, and so it gets there. Real hallways with real drills that are attached to every little bit. Furthermore, in this building, let's just say we have a subfloor rescue, right? A John Nance drill. Well, we have doors off hinges props right next to him. So you could take so if John Nance fell through the graded floor, and then we have Scott and John and Jimmy, doing the Nance drill there, how come they're not falling through that degraded floor too? So, hey, go get me a couple doors off hinges, and that's all training. So they take doors off hinges and throw them around the hole to hopefully, spread the load around some substantial floor joists and do that. So there's a prop within a prop within a prop within a prop all throughout there. And that's the tower. 2 burn rooms and all of that. Smoke machine we wind up redoing. We plumbed all type of plumbing pipe and shutoffs at the exhaust ports and at the source where the smoke machine's in, so you could when they VES and shut the door, then we shut the smoke machine off in their room because it's realistic, right? And then moving on from that building, which of course there's more in there. So I gotta watch time. And
hey, this is our training show. Keep going.
We got all day. We got all day.
I even said that. You guys saw it. Our viewers can't see. We have our private chat side. I said, run down that rabbit hole. Come on, man.
I got to minimize this to hear the chat, to see the chat. Built some more Connex boxes, and now for logistics, right, for storage. But we couldn't just leave it Connex boxes for storage. We put them, 8 feet apart, and we have peaked roof and 2 different pitches on there. And then vent holes, 16-inch on center for conventionally framed, then 24-inch on center for lightweight truss. So they have that, in there. And then all around inside those props are hasp and staples and carriage bolt punches and chains and padlocks and padlock twists and padlock slaps and drywall ladder climbs. And so all around every space that we have a small footprint, burglar bars, burglar bar removals, our cutting props, gap cuts, through the locks, it's all around these Connex boxes that were really placed there for logistics, where we keep our ladders and our hose and et cetera. But the list goes on in regards to realistic training. So with all of that there, we built our training program, not just from the props. We kind of built the props because of the curriculums that we have. But when you come to a forcible entry class, we're not just conventionally forcing, you're hitting all of these props, and we're doing unconventional forcible entry, of course, through the lock and et cetera. So we have a SCBA cascade and compressor there that was reactive. When we bought our new one at the firehouse, we moved the old one there and have that in a shed. So, of course, vehicles for car fires and the classroom. There you go.
Well, the list goes on, and you're almost sounding Scott. Who did he just sound like when he was talking about? And then we got this. We take doors off. See the guy that's sitting there right now in the T-shirt at his desk, Salka.
Yeah,
that is John. I mean, when we were teaching Paul, that was like we'd be at a vacant building, and I don't know if he was like burglarizing someone's house next door or whatever, but all of a sudden the doors and props and pallets and things and stuff and everything and couches and all this. Because John used to say the same thing. We don't crawl into. I have rarely ever searched around pallets and straw. I rarely ever. When we do the Mayday stuff, I've never found a firefighter laying next to pallets and straw. And John, you were phenomenal when it came to, especially in your room orientation drill, which is the best. I think the best in the country that's offered. At the creativity you had, John, when it came to making it more real life. I mean, that's tremendously important.
And you know what? The creativity was great, and the concept was great. The difference between a door and a doorway, and which way the door swung, and like Paul just said, from carpeted to a tile floor. You're moving into another room, maybe into a hallway and stuff like that. The problem was when we were at FDIC doing hands-on training. That's what we're telling them. We're telling Manning or whoever it was in charge. No. We don't want a big empty metal building. We want an old apartment house that's got bedrooms and doorways and hallways because we want the actual conditions. How are you supposed to teach a guy how to search and find people and know where he is? Room orientation and orientation inside of an occupancy when all it is a garage. Unless we can build walls and put doors up. So it was always a little bit of a challenge, and it still is a challenge, I'm sure, when you're trying to get either a vacant building or an acquired building to get one that's actually still in good enough shape that it's got doors on the bedrooms and stuff like that, and the floor covering is still in there. Guys look at me with their mouths open when I talk about floor coverings, and I just loved hearing Paul say that. You move from a carpet, obviously, except for some places in Harlem, not too many people have carpeting in the bathroom. You know what I'm saying? So, like, you're probably in a bedroom. You're probably in a living room. You feel that carpet end. You feel a tile floor. And then you feel the doorway, and it's not a door. It's just a wide archway. Well, you're probably going into a hallway from the living room. And you should be thinking that every time you do that. And that's just the floor coverings. Never mind the doors and all that. So, I mean, I could, like Paul, I could go on forever talking about room orientation. It's a great. It's still one of the least taught classes anywhere. Not that there's a specific class, room orientation, but my model of it or whatever your model is, it's good to hear other people are talking about it as well.
Well, and that's why I said you sounded like twins, because he's talking and I'm looking at you going, I've heard that same stuff, and that's what makes, and we're going to get to his program in a second, so invaluable with so much desire that they fill up so quick. Scott, how many times at FDIC did we jump in Seth, or we had pickup trucks? We'd get there Friday and we start setting up Saturday. John, you too. And we go to all the dumpsters and we'd be like coming back with tables and couches and stuff. And, or we'd be fighting other people, other groups that were there teaching, with champ.
And furniture was always big. Furniture was big. You had to have furniture. How are you supposed to know what kind of room you're in when there's no furniture? I used to tell guys, you find the furniture, you know where you are,
Yep.
Exactly. So we used to do that. So Paul, and I'll just jump ahead at this one. The programs you offer via Estes Valley Fire through the Regional Training Academy, I'm just, first of all, I love it, but they fill up. Like if you don't, and to our viewers, and we'll talk to Paul later about how you can sign up for his class, see where the schedule is at for that. But it's like you post them and they fill up. I mean, it's just, and there seems like there's always a waiting list. Whether you just did the electric vehicle class that you did, we did classroom, and they did fires, John and Scott. They burned stuff. His aggressive search class, all the stuff that they do, and we got guys. First of all, who doesn't want to come train in Estes Park? I mean, it's beautiful here, but when you're looking at members, John and Scott, off of Denver's Heavy Rescue and other places that are coming here, good people, good solid companies and big metro departments, that speaks about that specifically to that program. But Paul, I mean, they pretty much, if you don't jump on it, they fill up pretty quick, don't they?
They do.
And so real quick, let's go through the topics, and then we're going to break this down into what you do here, because John knows what he does with the FDNY, and then with South Blooming Grove with his volunteer department. Scott knows what he does with the county with his career place. You've got this training academy that does stuff both internally and externally. So just run through the topics that you offer throughout the year here to anyone, and then let's jump into the program, because the program here is pretty fascinating too on everything you cover. But let's talk first about the topics you throw out there for people to sign up for.
Sure. When you look at our training calendar for the year, it's robust, and we set it up the year before Q4 of last year. However, some things change depending on needs, or we see new threats come in and we'll change. But every Tuesday night is training for the volunteers, and we hit topics, and we found a way that I've been doing for years to train the new member and the senior experienced member on the same topic. However, we have a successful way where we can challenge the senior member without overwhelming the junior member, and we can do the same in reverse, where we can challenge the new member and not bore the senior member. So that is what I see. Certain places I go, where they just throw out a topic, and the senior member's like, yeah, I've done this a whole bunch, and they kind of get a little checked out. So how do you challenge them? So we found a way for that, because every year you kind of somewhat doing the same stuff, whether it be ropes or extrication, stretching lines, etc. So that's Tuesday nights, and then we do special classes on Thursday. So right now we're doing a chainsaw class for wildland, and those are on 5 different Thursdays and 1 Saturday. So after that, before that we just did an instructor 1 class. So again, robust in regards to offering classes, but we do 1 advanced class a month, and this is the one that Chief Lasky was alluding to, where we do firefighter rescue and firefighter survival, and then we go into some truck company operations. Seems like the need is truck company stuff in regards to stretching. Now we had to put fires out, but when you look at the threats and the strengths of around here, that a lot of engine company ops has been getting done here, and though we do those, and we make those advanced vertical stretches and balcony stretches, and of course standpipe stuff, the truck culture. Go ahead, Chief Salka.
Yeah, I got a question. Okay, I don't mean, I'm sorry to interrupt. So like you mentioned fire instructor and stuff like that, like all the classes that you give, you just mentioned a bunch of them, right? Where are they based from? Like the folks that graduate there get like an Estes Park certificate, or are they state curriculum? Do they get a state certificate? Is there any accreditation to the training, or is it simply in-house?
Sure. So our fire academy I didn't say yet, that is a DFPC, which is our state. So it's Colorado State Fire Cert, that you take that cert from here at Estes Park at our training grounds, and you take down the hill and you get hired at these departments. So it's a state firefighter certification. Well as our hazmat we do, it's state certified hazmat operations. Now, instructor, we use the DFPC, Division of Fire Prevention and Control for Colorado curriculum. And we have instructors here that do that. And you get a state instructor 1, instructor 2, company officer, etc. So they go other places. And we have plenty of paid firefighters here that are volunteers as well, that get that cert and use it their departments and boost resumes and get hired. So yes, they are legitimate certs, not just Estes Valley. However, where I was going with the advanced classes, where I was getting a truck company, firefighter rescue, firefighter survival, those are just our certs that they get as continuing education, not a state curriculum, which I'm glad, because it's my curriculum and I like that better.
Well,
and you can do whatever you want, and whoever you want can teach it. You have your own in-house instructors, your own guys that are qualified, right? So it's a nice mix.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of talent here, John and Scott, with Estes Valley Fire that Paul, like I said, taps into. Not only his partner, Captain Chris Thomas, that's phenomenal. In fact, our volunteers made up an award for him this year. I think it was at the awards making. They surprised him and gave him the Heart of the Department award. It was just, you could see the pictures how emotional he was, because he loved. I call him Pip. He's my pit bull, man. He is just. He is like, you say something about his volunteers, he's a nice guy, don't get me wrong, but you want to talk about someone that can rip your throat out. I mean, you say something about a volunteer firefighter here, he's going to jump your shit. All right, that's going to happen. So,
and are some of the volunteers the instructors too?
Yes. Oh, yeah. And that's the goal. So this is like threefold, to be honest with you. Yeah, we're educating other firefighters that come up and our own. But if I can get them on a level, which I've done, where they can become instructors, how much better they are when you're teaching, of course. So yes, right. I do pull from other places, but we have I would say majority come from here.
Well, Scott and John, Paul does his own full-blown fire academy, like what your son's going through. That kind. I mean, full-blown. People start and finish, and they walk away as a certified firefighter.
That is great.
Other things. So it's pretty awesome. But the classes, like I said, the exterior classes fill up so quick. But and before I forget, Paul, if someone wanted to see your training calendar like I did, you have that posted for anyone to look at, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And all the titles and classes are on there. And that's at the Estes Valley Fire page. And then you go to training and courses. They're all on there.
Estes Valley Fire, estesvalleyfire.org for our viewers. And before we move on, one of our viewers popped up, our producer posted it, Bob from Cherry Fire Protection to Cherry, Illinois. Oh my God, what a great group of people there over the years when I was in Illinois. So thanks, Bob, for joining us. But so Scott, you can picture this place, because I know we're going to have you out here, all the great things going on here, because we've talked on this show how many times about passion, and everybody that's been part of this show. The reason I'm honored to call you my friends is because you love the fire service so much, you can't help but admire you. And we are very specific and particular when it comes to training, because we know here we're at fireengineering.com, FDIC training is the backbone behind every fire department, every successful firefighter. But we even went down a couple of things I want to cover with Paul yet, Scott, but what you do in the colony, and I know I brag on your guys, not as much as you do. All right. There's very few fire chiefs out to brag about their people as much as you do, but the payoff that like even Paul's talking about now, and I have seen it, is in what they produce at an incident, right? Anybody can shine during training, which we want them to. We want them to be good, and that's where you polish it. And that's where you get things going. But man, the rubber meets the road when they're out there on an incident. And we just had a lot of rollovers here. Paul, was during the snow, and by the time I got out of my car and walked up there, they already had a rope tied to the ladder. They had it already down the hill. I had a guy deploy. I mean, it's like tying. It's like zipping up their shoes here, not even tying them. That's how easy they have it because of this training program. Scott, that's the colony. That's your guys. You've had Maydays there and next door. Your guys perform at a level up here, but you've said this before. And that, and all kidding aside, a lot of what's in the functional fire company when it comes to values and what you do to produce that, the county is incredible when it comes to it.
Yeah, it's a culture thing. And Paul, I'm thinking right now, I want to come out, excuse me, and get some ideas on how we can, with our new tower, do some of the things you were talking about. Use all that available space. So I'm putting that on my calendar. That'll be my reason to take a trip out there pretty quick. But yeah, we do something we call a training season, so that we have continuity to our training. But we have a very specific, for a suburban area, we do the engine and truck deployment model thing, and we're big into that. And so we built the yard, as it sounds like what you also did, Paul. We built our training facility to help us rehearse the things that we're going to be doing in all those different areas, and it's very specific to us and how we operate. And we all travel around, and that's not the case in a lot of places. But our culture, finally, in 15 years, I like to say our guys train now because they realize that their success and survival depend on it, not because it's the chief or somebody telling them they have to do it. And I think when you build all these cool programs like Paul was talking about, and you have that ownership and people, want to invest in other people's success, man, when you get to that point, just a lot of really, really cool things happen. And it all starts with training. I told my guys at captain's camp yesterday, everything that you hope to do in the future, retire, move to Florida, be with your grandkids, whatever that is dependent on the training that you do today, the quality of the training. That's the closest thing you can do to guaranteeing those future goals. And we got to get our people thinking about that, the true value of training, and stop making it sound like it's busy work or, a chore. And that's just kind of how we look at it.
Well, I've always said training was always my favorite part of the day. And John, I know you love to talk about, go ahead, buddy. I was going to make you talk about Timmy.
And that's the word. I want to interrupt you for a minute. You know what? Training should be a treat. It shouldn't be a chore. And that was the word that was right on the tip of my tongue when you said it. It shouldn't be a chore. Some guys do training because chief will be around. It's 1 o'clock. He'll be here. And I don't want to misspeak, but, and don't get me wrong, sometimes you got to start with that, with a place either that's not training or with a department that hasn't put an emphasis on training. Sometimes you got to start with, guess what? There's a new sheriff in town. We're going to be doing training every day. Every day, chief. That's right. Every day at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, at 7 o'clock at night. And it might be a chore for a while until they get into the routine, until they get into the habit, maybe even until they start realizing the benefits and going to a couple of jobs and saying, holy shit, we just drilled on that last night and we just used it just now. That worked out great. And suddenly there's sort of a transformation that goes on, like obviously, Rick, where you and Paul are, that's 10 chapters ago. You guys are well into it. Your people already realize the value of training. Same thing with you, Scott. But everybody's not there. So sometimes selling training, getting training off the ground is the hard part. But once it's up and running, again, like you said, Scott, if they invest in it, the department invests in it, either monetarily, financially, or even just with enthusiasm and appointing instructors and making sure people appreciate it and giving them maybe the proper props. You want to teach people forcible entry. Eventually, you're going to have to either build a prop or buy a prop. You can't watch a video all day long. You know what I'm saying? So it's true. It should be a treat, not a chore. Yeah.
Well, you said something about passion again. And I know we want everybody to take their turn and get a little bit better at teaching their fellow firefighters, so forth. But sometimes some of the programs we've seen as we've traveled, they've got people that, whatever. All right, Scott, you're getting promoted. You're the training chief. Oh God, I want to do training. And that whole, I don't want to do this, is a reflection on the dullness of the program. I watched
and they leave them in there for 2 years, and then somebody else comes in. So by the time you learn where the pencil sharpener and the stapler is, you're out and somebody else is coming in. I never understood that.
Exactly. And I watched Paul last night. We're getting done. We had an officers meeting, and then he's out on the floor. They're doing ropes. They're doing skeds. They're doing everything. And they're between him and, Captain Thomas was there, and there was a passion. There's some laughing going on, some seriousness going on, some cutting up going on, some other stuff. It's like the talent it takes to make training fun and interesting sometimes escapes people. And John, I was going to go to, our one of our favorite officers, yours, Lieutenant Tim Klett. And we do the Battalion Chiefs Academy. we actually have pictures. And Scott, you've seen it with Paul. We've got pictures of 88's house, which is what, 110 years old, John? 100. How old's 88? 110, 115. And it's so, you would think it's a new firehouse. It's so clean. When John says, Paul, you can eat off the floor, you can eat off their engines, but you go up into the bunk room, Paulie, and you can't get into the bunk room because there's a panel of wood with a triangle cut into it, because Tim was just making his guys crawl through that with their air pack and having to doff it. And then when he gets bored with that, John, what does he do? He puts another panel up with a square. And then they start breaching. John, tell them how with the ladder truck. What do they do every day with the ladder truck to check it? They pull it
right, climbing up the area ladder to the roof, and they put a couple of cuts into the roof simulator up on the roof, rather than just starting it and standing there and revving it. Which some places that's all they got. Everybody doesn't have the ability to do that. But the point is, and the difference between good and great is the places that do have the ability to do it. And then somewhere along the way, there's a lieutenant standing around saying, man, why can't we do what we just heard about that other guy that does in the Bronx? And they make it happen. You make a phone call, say, hey, Chief, can we put the ladder up to the roof and bring a couple of pallets up there and pretend, that we're cutting up there? Just lost 2 guys. Must have had a meteor shower or something somewhere flew through.
You're good. We can hear you. So, well, and I've said that for years about 38.
Everybody's frozen on my screen.
Okay. But we got you, John. We can hear you. But 38 and 88.
Rick is gone. Can anybody see Rick?
Yeah, we can see you.
We'll get you back. But one of the things we talked about, Scott and Paul, excuse me, in class is 38 and 88 are almost guaranteed to be going to a job every day, if not multiples. Yet they still feel it's important enough to climb their ladder up to the top of their 3-story, which is like a 6-story building, and cut on the roof prop. Rain, snow, they block the street off, Paul. They block the street off. They put cones. You can't drive down the street, and that's how they check their ladder. So what I want to, before, we still have plenty of time left, but Paul, this seems to, and I had a guy just, we always say, please hit us on, on the website here, but somebody put the question in there about balancing the topics. You mentioned it before about the new guy and the older guy, and we're not going back over the same stuff with the older guy. And this program here is pretty fluid. Where, remember, Scott, we talked to Eddie Buchanan years ago. How do you have 250 career guys and 500 volunteers and not have the guys that have 10 years going, really, we're starting all over again because we hired 10 new guys? Paul, you and Chris have an excellent program here where you don't wear out the more tenured guys with the new stuff all the time, every time. I don't know. Talk about that balance again, that you strike here to be able to make it interesting for everybody and not wear certain people out.
I think I know where the question is heading. Just want to say a couple of things like Chief Salka, said earlier too. We're talking about training. So I guess before I answer the question, what does a successful training program look like, right? What is a successful, whether it be company drill in the bay for one company, you're the company officer, or, the training chief at the training grounds, multi-company evolutions, it gets pretty broad, and we can talk deeply on each of these, but a couple of things, like what Chief Salka said earlier, is does Estes Valley firefighters, instruct? And yes, they do. But we got to get vetted, and we got to get some succession planning before they do that. But one of the things, and I'll just say quickly, is we take what we do very, very serious, but we don't take ourselves serious. All right. It should be 30 seconds when you hear somebody talk to know if they've done the job or not done the job. Right. So, like last night when we had some people laughing, and it's a balance, right? Because what we're doing is not a joke. There's fatalities, involved in all of these trainings and skills that we have to learn because the public expects it. But there are times too that we can have fun, and if training is not fun, we have an issue. I said last night, because we had about 4 new people, I just want to let you guys all know, this is training. It's not testing. I'll let you know when it's testing. So because it's training, all right, I'd like us all to be humble, and you come up here and you're lashing the patient in the Stokes basket. And if you mess up, it's okay, because we're training. and let's make some bold mistakes. And we have a culture now, and when we do, you get a little nudge and be like, hey, wrap it around that, not this, because we're all learning together. So I guess set the environment and make that contagious with your instructors, that we take what we do very serious. Don't take ourselves serious. And there's time for seriousness, and there's time that we can be a little light. So without getting any more in that, I think that is paramount to set that environment like we had last night.
Let me interrupt 1 second, Paul. I want to throw some, because right on top of what you said about we're training, that's the time to make a mistake and correct it and all that stuff and keep improving. And John Scott, you heard Pete Novi came up with this saying when I was in Illinois, the essence of training is to allow error without consequence. And that's just what you said, Paul. Here's the time. The essence of training is to allow error without consequence. This is where you can say, stop, or I messed up. That's okay, Rick. Do it again, try it again, or whatever. And when I said, and for our viewers, when I said like there was some laughing, it wasn't, there's a lot of nervousness. There's some people that are really scared that all of a sudden they're going to be the ones having to tie something. And I'll say this, Paul, and they good instructors know how to keep it serious, but make people feel comfortable. Sometimes they take a little shot at themselves and joke, and people giggle a little bit. And it's more that nervous laughter, not that we're sitting there cutting up the whole time. So it was that nice balance to get everybody feel comfortable last night. And I stood in the back where they couldn't see me watching. It was pretty awesome. But keep going, Paul. I'm sorry.
Bleed in training, so you don't have to bleed in battle, Chief. And we say these things, and of course, attach immediate practical application to it. So it's like, down highway so-and-so, car rolls down the thing, and we have the thing. This is what we're doing to overcome that. So like, okay, cool. I need to know this because you just gave me the scenario, right? Go to survival that you guys have been doing since the 80s. Is like, if you just teach the Nance drill, it's like, why am I doing this? It's so tough. Why am I doing the Denver drill? Why? Because Mark Langvart died on September 28th, 1992. But, and you go down the thing, it's like, okay, I have to learn it. So practicality, the way the instructors handle themselves. And now to answer your question. So this takes a little front end before you present the drill, whether it be on a company level or the training grounds multi-company evolution. So the front end is like, any of you give me a topic in the fire service. I could say a couple, but let's just say stretch and hose. Okay, if we say we're going to pull the hose off, and we're going to calculate how many lengths we need, and do the rig to door, do the whole thing. The senior member's like, man, I've done this a whole bunch of times, so I'm getting checked out, or I'll just start instructing my I'll start helping instruct my junior member, and that's all great. But what are we going to do to challenge that member? Going back a little bit, is there are standards that we all have to meet. So put that aside, because that is non-negotiable. But sometimes we look at our members and we all think they got to be Navy SEALs, right? So the junior member, that we all got to be like this member here, and that's unrealistic. And that shouldn't be the expectation, all right? Because we're going to induce anxiety to our new members, and they're just going to regress. But we say, you know what? How can each member just elevate themselves just enough? And to elevate a senior member, here's the question: an elevate a junior member, it looks different. So on the front end, we say this: all right, we have our senior member here. We're going to create a short stretch where they stretch short. We're going to create a burst line. We're going to create this instance that's just a little like the next level. If I did that to the junior member, shoot, they can't even stretch and pin the hose down and make a push. So we throw in something, and there's levels of that, and it all looks different, and all looks different to different people. I could go on all the disciplines. You pop a door in an extrication. Great. The senior member is really good at that. So I set up already ripping the sheet metal on the door. So now they got to come in and be like, oh man, the sheet metal's already ripped. Like, we have an issue. So how are they going to attack this? Now, is there some education? Of course. And we show them that way. And sometimes they innovate some ways or problem solve on their own, but some ways I don't expect them to know. This is training again. And we say, this is how we overcome this scenario, whether we switch to the hinge side or take it vertical. So to challenge the members is a little on the front end. And that's what I try to do to our members in all disciplines. If it's something new, of course, or we feel that proficiency hasn't been done. I'll give one more example on these job sheets, but it's packaging. We undo the belt and we put it between the legs, and that's how we package, right? With a couple more things. Well, the senior members, okay, got that. But now we go to them, and the belt is open. Maybe that's the culture of your fire department. You didn't go in with your waist strap tightened, or you come to that down firefighter that another member failed, and now that's the situation that you're in. The pack's kind of coming off. What do? We don't rise to the occasion. We sink to the level of our training. So those senior members, we throw in those contingency plans, those issues. We take issues out of ropes last night. The pulley's gone, and now you got to make the 3-to-1. Well, shoot, man. I'll run it through a carabiner, and great. Is it as efficient as a pulley? No, but those senior members are now thinking if something happened, we just don't flounder. So long story short, it's find a way to challenge your senior members so that they both leave training, they both did that discipline, and they both got challenged. Like, yep, we trained on hose today, but they did a little different things, And
that's probably and John, you and Scott, especially John, because you've got guys with Scott, you got a lot of new guys too, but John, you've got some senior members. Out of everything we talked about so far, and I'm not trying to pin down one that it's all important, but that's probably the most important message we could send to our viewers. Just what Paul talked about, what you have to do to balance, because we hear that all the time about, well, I was bored, they were doing this, or here we go again with the new guys, and I'm standing here on the side. Paulie, so many people can't do what you just said. Again, I'm just going to say it. Out of all the great stuff we talked about, that's the best. That is the best message so far out of all the great stuff we talked about, is how to strike that balance. Go ahead, John.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, for my volunteer fire department, and I know it happens lots of places, we have a I don't know what you want to call it, a Grand Canyon between our senior members and then our junior members, and the middle's absent. There's no 30 or 40-year-old guys. We got 48, 50, 60-year-old guys, and we got 21, 28-year-old guys. We don't have any 30 or 40-year-old guys. There's just none there. So what happens is tonight's drill night. I'll go to drill night tonight, and Will and all the young officers, all the young guys sort of took over, which is great. They all sort of joined together, and 5 years later they started running for office. And before you know it, they're all the officers now, right? And all of a sudden he'll gather everybody. They'll all be there, all get their gear on after they check the rigs and clean the tools and do the mask and all that, right? And then the 5 or 6 senior guys that are there are sitting at the table on the apparatus floor. We get a nice table on the apparatus floor with the chairs around it, and and that's where they end up sitting for most of the night. They'll listen in on the drill, but sometimes they get on the rig and drive away and go to the high school, or they go to the pond to do drafting. And most of the senior guys don't go. Most of the senior guys hang around because been there, done that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's a great message. Obviously it's a little more challenging for the instructor because they got to do the basic hose line, maybe stretching with the younger guys, and throw those couple of other, the short stretch or the burst length in for the senior guys. You got to get them back up there and get them in gear again. But it's important because in a lot of places, that's exactly what happens. The old guys they're still showing up. They're still showing up every Wednesday night. They're not absent, which is great. But sometimes they don't get tested again. They don't get hands-on because they've done what they're teaching them 5,000 times. So that's a great lesson there. I hope everybody's listening to that one. Oh,
and I don't care who you are, when you don't practice, that's like a baseball player. When you're not in the batting cage, you're going to be swinging and missing later. I don't care how good you are. You can't.
You see these guys in baseball, right? They miss 13 baseball games, right? Because they're injured or whatever, and they come back. It's like they just joined the team. All they did was miss 10 or 15 games, and it's like they're a brand new guy coming from AAA.
That's right. That's exactly right. Scott, real quick before we get to Paul with some topics here. So all the years in Louisville with the great stuff you did, I remember you actually did a class we used to talk about the Big Five. And we sat down, and Paul, we said, because when I got there, even before you, Scott, you were still chiefing it next door. They just did Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday training, and it was like whatever they want to do. And I went to Calvin, my union president, said this is going to change, and he was all over. I remember we had an officers meeting. They all rolled their eyes. I said we're going to be trained 6 days a week. It was 24/48. It's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, multi-company drills, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, part 2 or in-house. Third week was EMS because we had, at the time, 100-something paramedics. Mm-hmm. But remember, we did the Big Five, Paul, with Scott and I. So once a quarter, once a quarter, 4 times you had to do a hose evolution, a ladder drill, an SCBA drill, a live fire, and a RIT drill. And I've said this before, Scott and John, you've heard me say it, at the risk of pissing off somebody from the state sitting in the class. You know where I'm going with this. You've heard me say it. I really don't care when's the last time my guys have done chutes and ladders with the salvage covers. Okay. I want to know that with the little bit of time we have to fit in our training calendar for the year, depending on making your department, I want to make sure they know how to stretch hose, Paul, just what you talked about, and not just stretch it. Do all the different things you can face. Throw a ladder, wear an SCBA, be inside, reduce or zero visibility, and drag a firefighter out. Whatever we can fit in after that, whether it's mandatory through the state or not, comes afterwards. And Scott, we did that, and we had some pretty good results with that when it came to all the. And they do a ton of fires in Louisville.
Yeah, and we still do it, Rick. We still do the big five, and we added a drill to it that we call the first 5 minutes. And those things combined, I think if you ask our senior members in the colony why the fires go well, they'll say those two drills. And whenever I'm on the road, I'm saying, listen, of all the stuff I'm going to talk about, really consider the big five and the first 5 minutes. And you get those together, and you've done everything that you can do to position yourself for success starting off. Then after that, we kind of, we work towards the incident. But what are the things we can do before we set the parking brake to position ourselves to go to work and be proactive and not reactive?
And I'm not knocking salvage cover drills by no means. It's a necessary thing. But when we used to do the train officer one-on-one classes, Paul, in Illinois, it's a 40-hour class. Thursday morning was do your calendar day. And guys, they're like, I only got like 10% of my stuff done. I go, I know it's kind of hard fitting everything in for that year. Start with the mandatory stuff versus the important stuff to everything. And the nice to haves, every one of us has been a train officer. And you go, good God, how do I get this stuff done? So, and we got a few minutes. We got Mark, our producer, lets us run a little bit. So John and Scott, what I wanted Paul to talk about is just what we talked about, Scott, is the balance. Paul, when they look at your training calendar, again, go to estesvalleyfire.org. You'll find it. Go to the training, the drop down for the training academy, the training. You'll see Paul's calendar. Just walk us through your decision every year that you and Captain Thomas do when it comes to what topics you're even to teach. Because I know there's things we have to do here, being in the Rocky Mountains and everything else, with 4.5 million people coming here throughout the year and rescues. Right now, they're looking for someone still up in the national park here that's missing. All the different stuff. How do you pick and choose for your yearly calendar?
Sure. Yeah. So great question. And I think applicable to all our listeners as well. So one of the main things, the first thing is we gotta maintain a level of proficiency and competency. So let's say there, and that's also maintaining their search. So it's my responsibility as the training chief that certs don't lapse. And in Colorado, they use the term JPRs, right? Job performance requirements, and you have to do so many all these JPRs and topics to renew your certification. However, okay, this is where a lot of places go wrong, is that they repeat Fire Academy, which is minimum standard every year or every 3-year cycle, whatever, to maintain those JPRs. So when you go to a training, you're doing JPR 3A, 4B, and 3C, and we're throwing a ladder and donning our gear, and you're not advancing. So it's the spirit of, if you throw your gear on, right, before you force a door, that's 3A. So I just got to make sure that we hit these JPRs, but not from minimum standards. We're going to expand on those, so to speak. So first, I got to make sure the topics are covered, right? So it doesn't go 4 years and they never throw a ladder, and that's never going to be the case. But so to make sure the certifications are being met, so they're in there. And all my trainings, when I put it into our program, they populate to JPR, so I can run an easy report saying, "Wow, we didn't do water chutes and catch-alls," So I'll know where that is. So that's all fit into the training calendar, and a lot of them are grouped in together. But the next thing is, I see what our threats are. Like this year or last year, man, we're getting so many more electrical vehicles. So that is in my outside budget, my outside instructor budget. That's we're doing electrical vehicles. We're focused on that. Last year, Chief, which is in 2002, our members could really use some history and a little more pride and ownership, because they're asking, like, why are we wrapping our hooks? It's like Chief Lasky's coming in. So I do that fluid, right? So not everything is concrete. It's what do we need at this moment, at this time, and that's the outside instructor budget. But another piece we run an academy every year and we have training every year, but we have an advanced class on most topics once a month all year, because, for instance, we do ground ladders in Fire Academy. But what we do in Fire Academy, 1 firefighter, 2 firefighter raises, beam, flat, etc., that's not all. So after Fire Academy, I need you to take the unconventional ground ladder class. So that's there. Now they're doing upside down balcony raises. Now they're doing high anchor halls with ladders, or flat roof removal. So with ladders, we're doing chute raises where tip first, and you're going tip because everything's butt first. So all of the ladder stuff is an advanced class. Same with search. Same with firefighter survival. You can't get it all in minimum standards. So what we see these firefighters now coming to these advanced classes, forcible entry, right? They're not taking burglar bars off in Fire Academy, but we got burglar bars. So when does that come? So we run an advanced class once a month, in addition to the Tuesday nights, in addition to the certification nights on like Thursdays and Saturdays, all conducive to the volunteer for the most part. Sometimes you got to take a day off to go to an 8-hour class. We run them on Saturdays. So I know I kind of like threw out a lot, but it's all calculated. It's all to maintain certifications, and it's all to elevate our fire department as we go. We should not be the same fire department next year as we are this year. We have some new members, right? And we have grace for that. They're not going to be Navy SEALs, but our members should now getting, whether it's equipment or different tactics that we use, could be more efficient, or whether it's just quicker. So now we're timing some drills. Fun. It's still training, and now we do this a little quicker, or etc. So it's calculated, and I said it really quick as we're looking at the time go by. But if anyone wants to know a little more about the training philosophy or the methodologies that we use to create that, it's not just words on paper. There's some calculated stuff in there.
Well, and we're going to get to some contact information here in a couple of minutes, but I just thought that was so important, because that's the question that, Paul, you get. I know Scott and John, you get it, is how do I strike a balance? I'm trying to do my best. There's very few train officer one-on-one classes out there that actually everybody goes through instructor 1 and 2 and all that stuff, but it used to be instructor 4 was that way. Instructor 1, here's your lesson plan, go teach you guys. Instructor 2, you're actually right lesson plan. Instructor 3, when I used to teach, it was an 80-hour class. You did occupational task analysis and blah, blah, blah. Instructor 4 was the 40-hour class about how to manage your whole training division. And there just isn't enough of that out there, Paul, to help guys do just what you said, that's why I thought this topic was so important, to give people a little sampling of some successful programs between the three of you as to how to make this work, how to do it, because those are the questions guys go, this would be great, but I don't know. I came off the line. They promoted me. I got pushed to training, or, and there's not, you wish there were more resources out there, because I think firefighters, like we all are, they're competitive. They want to be the best. They want to be the best they can. I believe that about the majority of them, if not all of them, but it's hard. It's hard to put that stuff together. So as we go around here, we do this at the end, Paul, and I'll get to you in a second here with some closing thoughts, but John, we've been talking about putting together the best training program you can for, like I said, firefighters, a firefighter, career, volunteer, doesn't matter. But, you've been with the FDNY, 50 years in the fire service, I love bragging about your guys. I love the members of the South Blooming Grove Fire Department in Orange County. Your guys are awesome. What advice do you have for the training officer, the training captain, or whatever, to help them build or keep that program going, or what would you tell them to make it work for their people?
I mean, everybody's got ideas and concepts, and I love what Paul just said. I think that's a great concept, that your fire department shouldn't be the same fire department next year as they are this year, right? Because that's what a lot of training programs sort of fall into. They fall into the rut. It's like a record. Nobody even knows what I'm talking about when I say it's like a record, right? Remember the old vinyl records, even though they are coming back, right? It's like a record that's skipping. It's like skip, like that's what every year's training is. It's like they even take the same piece of paper out and they write 2024, and then they do the same quarterly training or the same topics instead of some new stuff. Add some new stuff each year. Develop, maybe throw some stuff out and put some new stuff in and rotate the stuff around a little bit. So, I mean, I think that was one of the best things we heard all day today was your fire department should be a better, different, well-trained fire department next year than they were this year. I think that's a great goal for training officers to, they gotta put that into their mind. They got to start thinking about it, but that's a great way to start. Yeah.
And I love when we have a great topic like this, because just when you think that was the best thing out of all the great things we said, another best thing comes up, and that was another great topic. Scott, your advice from Chief Thompson.
Well, of course, I agree with all, but I think, Paul, you said it. There's a discovery phase and then there's a strategy phase. Let's figure out what we need to train, and it starts with that defining success on everything we do. When we have a vision of what success looks like, we can work backwards and identify the knowledge, skills, abilities, attitudes, experience to achieve that. And when you do that, and that's how we built our yard, we said, okay, we want to do this kind of forcible entry. So we build props for that. Now we have, forcible entry doors in every firehouse and those things. So you got to kind of start off with the mindset of what do we want to achieve? How much better do we want to be next year? What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What are our capabilities? And what are our limitations? And then you start building the training calendar. But another thing that I think sometimes the fire service gets wrong is we don't start at the technique level. We talk about tasks, tactics, and strategy, and we don't teach, anybody who's ever forced a commercial door or cut a commercial roof, there's a technique to that. It's an assigned task, but do we start at the basics and then build up? We break down the skill and we break it into parts, and we learn different things. So I think you gotta do that, and then challenge your people, have fun while you're doing it, but really try to instill the value of training. And it's not a chore. It is. I love what Chief Salka said. It should be a treat, because everything we do depends on the quality of our training, and I honestly believe that.
Well, and yeah, exactly. Another great. And we keep hitting without saying the word passion, because passion drives success with whatever you're doing, and it's easy when you're passionate about what you do to figure out how to do it right. It's the ones that are not happy with what they're doing that stumble. It's like when you're mad, nothing goes right and all that. So, Paul, sum things up. If you had advice for if right, because this is going to happen, get ready. When somebody calls, Scott's laughing. He knows. Remember, Terry used to get bombarded for copies of SOGs and SOPs. So you get a young captain or a new training chief that calls you, says, Chief Capo, look, they just threw this at me. What advice do you have? What advice would you have for the new training officer and or training chief? What would you tell them?
Oh man, I think we covered a lot today. Just like Chief Thompson said, I have a lot to say. I'd have to ask him or her a bunch of questions first to see where they're at. But take yourself, like I said earlier, take what you do very serious. Don't take yourself too serious. So you're relatable. Chief just said about learning the techniques, and once you learn the techniques, I would say put them in a realistic environment as quick as possible. You'll be very surprised to see how many people come and don't know how to search with a set of irons in a hand or a can and a hook, and they're searching with like one pickhead axe. I'm like, I hope you're chalking the door with that, right? So realistic training is crawling through a building, possibly with a hook and halligan in your hand. I know it's an OV tool, but some officers, we take that in, and and you're teaching where to, when, and how to pull ceiling, and so we got to make it realistic, and it doesn't have to be like real arduous, or people think realistic that we got to throw Nerf footballs at them all the time. There's places for stress inoculation, but no, just realistic training. And we just talked about quick SWOT analysis. Scott said, and so it kind of differs depending on your area. But when I go somewhere and train, and I see a bunch of what type of occupancy we're talking about. Rather, a bunch of taxpayers, or I see a bunch of barrel bolts on things, and I talk to their people, and they don't have a way for that. You need to input that in your proprietary to your areas training calendar. It's got to be. So yeah, that's a really broad question, Chief, because there's so many different ways I can answer it. But yeah, give me a call and we'll talk through it.
Well, like you said, and look at where you're at. Yeah, look at what you're protecting. If you want to know what you should be training on, look at what you're being responding to out there. The type of occupancies, the type of challenges you have, and all that stuff. That's like we talked before about apparatus. As cool as it is in the FDNY, John will be the first one to tell you, don't spec one a rig exactly like ours, because that may not work for you in your particular neighborhood or whatever. Make it work for you. And I think the training program has to go the same way. So we talked about
drives training, Chief. Like you should train on the new operational tactic or strategy you're doing, or the existing one. So operations drives training.
Absolutely. So we said EstesValleyFire.org if they want to see anything. It's a great website, but especially the training side. Paul, if someone wanted to email you to maybe follow up with a phone call or talk to you or Captain Thomas and go, okay, an hour is not long. An hour and 10 minutes is just not. We actually did an hour on topic and 10 minutes of a little talk at the beginning. It's not enough time. We could do this for 8 hours, which we need to have you back anyway. What's a good email address for you if they want to get a hold of you?
Sure. P Capo, P as in Paul, Capo at EstesValleyFire.org. And I'll tell you how this is going to work. You're going to email pcapo at EstesValleyFire.org, and I'm going to call you. And we're going to talk.
Well, and I did this on purpose yesterday, guys. I posted to all the social media stuff. If you're coming to Estes Park, Colorado, come visit Estes Valley Fire. The door is always open. The coffee pot's always on. And that was kind of the precursor to this. If you have any questions, if you're coming through the area, you want to make a trip, give us a call. You come out here, I absolutely guarantee you that Chief Capo, Captain Thomas will show you everything regarding training. Now, we have a whole lot of other things to show off as well with other chiefs and what we're doing here as a department as a whole. But, man, they will bend over backwards to show you and share with you what they've done here for successes. John, go ahead. Oh, John, I thought you had something. I'm sorry, buddy.
Oh, yeah, I did. I was going to make sure the coffee is on. You said the coffee would be on, right? Make sure the coffee's on.
Yeah, coffee will be on. Coffee pot's always on. So, John, if they want to get a hold of you, good email.
ChiefJohnSalka@gmail.com.
And Chief Thompson from the Colony, Texas.
Yes, Scott at fireserviceleadership.com. But I also want to offer up, if you go to my website, fireserviceleadership.com, I have the mentoring packet on there, and I also have a training packet.
How much does that cost, the mentoring program?
$0. And so is the training. You got to put a little information in, but a lot of the things that we talked about, there we go. But download those for free and do what you want with them and modify them. But in there, we talk about the training season, the first 5 minutes, the big 5, the company preparedness drill. So please take advantage of that and use it any way you'd like. And contact me if I can do anything to help you.
Perfect. I'm at Lasky at EstesValleyFire.org. Give me a shout. I'll do the same thing as you follow up with a phone call. It's easier sometimes. But, hey, most of us are on all the different social media platforms, so give us a shout if you need something. Our next Humpday Hangout, we have the third Wednesday. We've had that for years and years and years and years now. The third Wednesday is our Hump Day. The next one's June 19th. We always mention fire engineering always has some great – first of all, just go – you're already at fireengineering.com. Look at the ribbon at the top. You've got fire engineering. You have FDIC.com. You have GEMS. You have Firefighter Nation, Fire Rescue, Fire Apparatus, everything you need from the training community. It's an incredible website. So explore while you're here. There's always some great hangouts on Wednesdays. There's also some great nightly podcasts. Tomorrow night, John and I have our monthly show, The Command Post, and we actually did one. The topic is the volunteer company officer is the one we talked about. So join us for that. We always. And guys, hang on, Paul. Don't hang up when you're done here. When our producer pulls us off, just stay on for a second. But we always end all of our shows with a very important statement. And in closing, we ask you to please keep the men and women, our armed forces, your thoughts and prayers. Remember, there's never forgetting means just that, never forgetting. Thank you. God bless you. And we'll see you next time. Paulie, thank you so much, buddy.